Welcome back to Sankofa Studios, where we explore art, art history, art culture, and where they intersect with sociology. And today we're doing another Artist Talks with Chicago's own Julian Williams. He's an art teacher and an art enthusiast, and my homeboy from the city of Chicago. So this is gonna be a really good conversation. I've been looking forward to it. How you doing today, Julian?
Doing very well, thank you.
Good to see you. So we're gonna jump right into it. Where did you grow up? What city are you from originally? Tell me about where you grew up at.
I grew up in Chicago, which is where I still reside, and I grew up on the South Side. I grew up in the Washington Park homes on 62nd and Calumet. If anybody is from Chicago, they know that area.
Calumet
Uh,
building.
yes, right. It was three buildings: Calumet, Wabash, and 220.
That's right.
And yeah, I grew up there, and I have you know three sisters and a brother, and I'm the eldest out of them all.
Okay.
And that was our stomping ground. We lived there for 18 years.
How would you describe the culture of that community? What was the culture of that area like?
The culture was, most of us, only had one parent, living with us. Some people had their fathers living with them, but most of us came from single parent families. We were poor.
Hmm.
In order to play games and stuff, we had to make our games. I remember even black kids, we liked hockey back in the
Yeah.
day. We
Hmm.
could play hockey. I mean, we could afford the hockey sticks, but we couldn't afford like the padding. So
Hmm.
our padding was like we would take old furniture, like the padding out of furniture, and use duct tape to make our padding for the goalie, and we would use a catcher's mask for the face mask and stuff like that. And our puck was a mayonnaise top.
A
You know,
mayonnaise top. Check that out.
yeah, you get a old cup. I mean, an old jar of mayonnaise, and take the top off of it. That was our puck.
That's incredible. That now now when you walk down the streets of 63rd Street, tell me am I picturing this right? I'm setting the scene here. You walk down to 63rd Street, Foremost Liquors, is that somewhere around there? King Drive, or I'm thinking Cottage Grove.
You thinking about Rothschilds?
Rothschilds, not
Yeah,
for tell
right.
now it's back in the 70s, that strip right there, there was a lot going on there. What was that business district like back then when you were
Oh,
coming?
you had Harold's Chicken, you had Walgreens, you had Rothschilds, and you had the neighborhood pharmacists who were the
Mm.
drug dealers,
Uh,
and the pimps and all that kind of stuff. So all of that stuff was around, but we knew the drug dealers and we knew the pimps and all that kind of stuff, and they made sure that when we were little that we stayed away from that stuff.
yeah,
We're talking like in the 70s.
yeah, 70s.
And so they made sure that the kids stayed away from it, and they tried to let us see as least as possible.
Mm.
But you know, inevitably we saw some of the stuff, but at least they tried to hide it. I don't think they try to hide it nowadays.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you led me right into my next question. What kind of child were you growing up? If you had to describe yourself as a child, how do you describe yourself? Let's say 12 years old. What were you like as a 12-year-old kid over there on the south side?
Quiet and shy. Um, I think my saving factor living in a place that was kind of volatile at times was that some people genuinely liked me. They
Mm,
liked me because I was quiet and I didn't, bother anybody or anything like that.
mm,
I remember a time when this former gang leader, we, you know, late years later in our adulthood, we talked, and he said back in the day when they were talking about recruiting people for gangs and stuff, they brought me up. It was like, what about him? And then one of the guys in the gang said, "Leave him alone. That's a schoolboy. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
You know, he's all right. Don't bother him." And I never knew that. I never knew that until I was like in my early 50s, late 40s, or
Wow.
something like that. Never knew it. And he told me, he said, "Yeah, man, we had our eye on you, but we told everybody that's a schoolboy. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
Leave him alone."
Yeah. You.
So I had people looking out for me and didn't even know they were looking out for me.
Yeah. That's a part of the community that I think that gets missed in the media when they talk about Chicago. Because I believe that Chicago is essentially at its core, it's a it's a northern city with southern sensibilities because all of us are only one or two generations removed from Mississippi, depending on
Right.
how old you are. Now, the
Hmm.
further removed the generations have gotten from those folks that came up from Mississippi that migrated, the more that southern, I'll call it a southern charm, has worn as time progressed. But the closer you are to that, the genuine article, I'll say, those black folks that came up from Mississippi to Chicago, the more connection you had to that type of culture where you respected the elders and all that. And you could even see that in the gangs back in the past. So when people are watching the media today, they picture Chicago as just like it's overrun by savages, and it's always been that way. I always remind people that this is a southern culture that was implanted in a northern city, and it's been
Absolutely.
struggling to adjust ever since. What do you think about that?
I think you're right. You know, a lot of the guys who were looking after me when I was a kid, they were from the South, and they all, you know, every summer, you know, you would hear people saying, "Yeah, we're going down south for the summer after school, or
Mm-hmm.
we're going to Mississippi, or we're going to Texas, or whatever, you know, like that." On the other hand, all of my people were up here, so I didn't really have the opportunity to go down south. I did on, you know, one time or two. I went down south with some of my friends and their family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I went with them. But see, back then, you know, I had this friend named Billy. His name is Billy Lyons. As a matter of fact, he and I still talk. He's like my oldest friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we were kids, um, you know, Billy and I wanted to do stuff or hang out at his house, but his parents would come to my parents' apartment and ask, "Hey, can Julian come, you know, have dinner with us?
Mm-hmm.
Or can Julian come to our house and play with Billy?" Or, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I always admired that family because they had a father and a mother lived there, and they set some values. They took their kids out to eat, to dinner, to show them how they should conduct themselves in public,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in public places and things like that. So I kind of, you know, I missed that, and I was kind of jealous of that because I didn't have that. But I was grateful at the same time that somebody would want to share their time with me,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
with
incredible.
a male figure and a mother figure, and just the entire family kind of structure that was going on.
Yeah. So as an artist and an art teacher, and I say an art enthusiast because I test people sometimes. I'll throw a name out there. I'll just volley it over the net, see what if they can hit it back. And you was hitting the back, boom, 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 and even gave me something that I had to go Google after our conversation. So no, I love that type of engagement. So what are your earliest memories of using art as a medium to express yourself? Your earliest memories.
Well, um, I don't know how much I knew about expression back then, but I remember when I found out that art was important to me and
Mm,
that when I took notice of it. I went to school, grammar school. I think it was maybe around second or third grade, and there was this guy named Richard Sims. He drew superheroes,
mm,
and I was just like amazed that, you know, he would draw Spider-Man and Batman and, you know, all, and Thor and the Incredible Hulk and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh man, can you show me how to do that?" You know, so he showed me how to do it, and I wasn't a natural. I was not a natural. So it took some time. I had to learn how to do some things. But to make a long story short, from that time on, I like to say I never put my crayons down. I
Yeah.
kept my Crayolas
Yeah.
and I still use them. But I saw that guy, Richard Sims, when we became adults. It was like, it must have been a 20 something year gap. And I saw him again and I asked him, was he still doing art or was he still drawing? He said, man, I haven't drawn since I was a kid.
Mm.
I'm like, wow, this guy was so talented.
Isn't that, don't you feel that disappointment when you see somebody that used to do it? And
Yeah,
I've had those experiences with somebody that used to do it and that inspired me, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what this person is doing, and they just kind of, they let it evaporate. So yeah, I understand that feeling
yeah.
completely.
And
Were you
it seems like it just came so natural to him and that he just, I don't even recall him erasing. He would just draw the figure out and it would just appear. And I was like, man, how did you do that? But,
yeah.
again, for me, I wasn't a natural. I had to work at
Mm.
it.
Yeah. Were you inspired by any Chicago born artists that you can think of?
Not at the time. Everybody that, when I was growing up, I used to go to this community center.
Hmm.
It was called Parkway Community Center. It was like on 67th and Eberhard.
Okay, I know what that's at. Yeah.
It was a community center, and where kids would go after school, play basketball, arts and crafts, theater, uh, all kind of stuff. They even had a preschool there, and I would go there and I would try to play basketball. My coordination is terrible. I'm not a basketball player.
Mm.
I'm not really an athlete, period. But when it came to art, that was my thing. That's where I really had a chance to really thrive and explore as an artist.
You know that sometimes those inspirational things will be in front of us and we won't recognize it until later. And I'll give an example of that. On the, where the Regal Theater is on 79th and Stony Island?
Oh
Offside.
yeah,
You know that big mural on the side of the Regal Theater?
yeah.
That was painted by two artists, Calvin Jones and
Uh
Mitchell
huh.
Caton. They
Mm-hmm.
also painted the mural on 71st and Jeffrey,
Yeah.
right on the side of the building, right there on 71st and Jeffrey. I grew up in that neighborhood, so I grew up
Mm-hmm.
walking past that mural every day, not
Mm-hmm.
painting, never touching a paintbrush, but I think somehow in my subconscious, it was burned into my memories. And when I did start to paint, I would unconsciously paint that way, and it wouldn't be until years after I started painting that I realized who painted that mural. I never even questioned it. I just
Yeah.
walk past it every day. So little bits of inspiration are everywhere. And what high school did you go to? You have any memories from high school
Oh yeah. I went
related
to
to art? Any art related high schools things?
yeah, I went to Simeon Vocational, and they had a commercial art department,
Mm-hmm.
but in your first couple of years, you had to take these exploratory shops like auto
Yeah.
mechanics, sheet metal,
Yes.
carpentry, printmaking,
Mm.
all that kind of stuff. That's really important now. I really think they never should have done away with vocational schools.
Yeah. I went to
You know,
CBS, so
yeah, yeah.
public vocational school. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that stuff that they were teaching, you could literally come out of high school and get a job and be a grown up.
Yeah.
But I was drawn to painting and drawing, and I knew that it either had to be uh, commercial art or architecture. I did start off majoring in architecture at first at Simeon. After you do your first 2 years, then you pick your major and you just concentrate on that for the next 2 years. So in the beginning, I picked architectural drawing. And after about a semester, I'm like, no, this ain't for me. I need, it's too much stuff that I want to do with paint. and drawing and stuff like that. So when I got into commercial art, I knew that I was where I needed to be. And my biggest influence in commercial art was my instructor. His name is Mr. Miles.
Wow.
Mr. Miles was, man, wow. I don't know. I mean, he was just amazing. Matter of fact, me and a friend of mine was talking about him the other day. And you know how you're talking to a buddy of yours and you might say, I wonder whatever happened to him. You know, that's what we were doing. We was like, I wonder what happened to Mr. Miles. No, nobody ever heard anything, you know, else about him. I don't know what happened to him.
And consider if, and this is I hope somebody from the Chicago public school system is listening to this because if as much emphasis was put into the arts, because there's a lot of interest in the arts across genres, in music, dance, the visual arts with painting, sculpting, all this. If as much emphasis was put into the arts that's put into sports, because Simeon is a machine that cranks out basketball players. Well, I went to
Mm-hmm.
school. CVS at the time was cranking out. I went to school with Juwan Howard and some
Mm-hmm.
others.
Oh, okay.
And football players, I can't think of their name right now, but they were cranking out athletes. And in the
Mm-hmm.
same way, I think that artists can be put out in these schools, bringing the arts back to the public school system. And it just don't apply to Chicago. This is something across the country I think will be beneficial in changing the culture inside some of the cities, especially with young people. So, you a college educated artist? Were you trained academically in academia?
Oh yeah. I one of the things my mother made clear was that after I graduated out of high school, that I had to go to college. So you know, when you think about going to college, you're thinking about what you're going to major in. And I knew right away, if it wasn't any art there, it wasn't no, you know, wasn't no sense in me going.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you that initially she sent me away to Western Illinois University,
Hmm.
which I didn't want to go to in the first place. And she sent me there because she wanted me to get out of Chicago. She wanted me to get a sense of being independent, and she wanted me to do well.
Hmm.
However, my first semester, I did well because I didn't know anybody and I had nothing to do but to study. And I made the dean's list on my first semester there,
Oh wow.
you know. But after that, when I got to know people and I started meeting these girls and stuff, it was downhill after that. And plus, I didn't want to be there because I wanted to go to art school. I wanted to stay in Chicago and go to the Art Institute of Chicago.
Hmm.
And my mother was like, okay, you want to do that? If you want to do that, then you're paying for
Yeah.
it. I was like, okay. So I ended up going to the Art Institute of Chicago. I didn't realize that, you know, you had to prepare a portfolio and be accepted. You know, it wasn't like one of those schools that you can apply for and, you know, it's just like open registration. Nah, they send you a letter. It's either a yay or a nay.
Hmm.
So they sent me a congratulatory letter. And I was so happy. I remember that day like it was yesterday. And I still have that letter. I wish I had
Wow.
it with me right now. I still have that letter saying, congratulations, you've been accepted at the Art Institute, blah, 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 blah. And, uh, and yeah, so from there, I went on to acquire my BFA and my MFA.
Okay.
And I minored in education because I knew I wanted to go in education, but I knew I didn't want to teach K through 12.
Hmm.
I don't have the patience and the sensibility that it takes to work with children that small and young.
Yeah.
One thing I have a low tolerance for is nonsense,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and I'm like this. Well, if you want to learn this, then hey, learn it. It's here. I got it for you. And if you don't, fine, leave. Bye. Have a good day. Find what you love, and I wish you well. But get out of my way. I got some people who want to get this. You
Yeah.
know.
I definitely understand that. I feel you, brother, because it takes a special individual. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday about one of my grade school teachers, Mr. Bishop. You know, he passed away a few years ago. but
Hmm.
we were talking about how much patience and dedication he must have had to deal with us on a daily basis. And this was a man
Yeah.
who was 10 toes down, got his hands dirty. You know, he was a teacher that would take a boy, as we're walking in the classroom, he would stand at the door and say, "You step to the side, you step to the side, you step to the side." And then once everybody sits down, he'll say, "All of your breath stinks this morning. Do not come to my classroom tomorrow with your breath smelling that way. Brush your hair. Now have a seat." And everybody laugh and giggle. But Mr. Bishop did it out of love, you know.
Right.
So and you
Never heard of that one.
yeah, he would put you on the spot, and then he would call your house. So my mother
Mhm.
knew who Mr. Bishop was. She
Right.
was acquainted with him. So those types of teachers had a special type of dedication. And like you said, it takes a special type of a unique individual to be a teacher. I definitely tip my hat to those teachers. Uh, Another question is, and it's something uh, that relates to art. With me, in my process, music is almost inseparable from my process. I use music, and I like to say sometimes that music is a part of my medium. And I think
Hmm.
that with black folks in art, I think of the soul of black folks, that artistic soul of black folks, that interconnectedness. When you think Ernie Barnes, you think Marvin Gaye because he did the album
Right.
cover. When you think
Right.
of, say, you go further back to an Aaron Douglas, you think of Fats Waller and those guys, the jazz and the big band. So the art is connected. When you know that art history, you can connect it to the music. What
Hmm.
music First, are you a music lover? And second, what music is most connected to your medium?
Wow. I'm a music lover, absolutely, with no question. Um, I'm with music like I am with painting. You know, you can't like put me in a box and say, this is him. He does nothing else. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And with my taste with music, my my taste with music, you can't put me in a box with that either because I like Cuban music.
Mm.
You know, I like reggae music. I like R&B. I like classic rock.
Mm.
That I've been on a classic rock binge lately. I've been listening to a lot of Zeppelin
No.
and Peter Frampton and sometimes the Doors or whatever. And I think I like classic rock because these guys play instruments.
Yeah.
You know, it may be loud and raunchy or whatever, but when I listen to "Since I've Been Loving You" by Led Zeppelin,
Mm-hmm.
man, you talking about some guys who can rock and play their instruments, man.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know, Robert Plant said, you know, they were first of all they were influenced by the blues, American
That's
blues,
right. Yeah.
and he said that they turned the blues on its ear,
Mm.
meaning that they tried the blues, but they ended up with something else.
Yeah.
In that process of trying to achieve some of the sounds of their heroes that they were listening to, uh, they got something else, and they were like, "Hey, I think we got something here."
Yeah.
So when I'm listening to music, it depends on, I don't know, it depends on the day, because like I said, the last couple of weeks I've been rocking out to a lot of Zeppelin.
Yeah. That's interesting because one of the biggest rock groups, the Rolling Stones, got their name from a Muddy Waters song.
Yeah,
They were really influenced by Muddy Waters. And like
yeah,
you said, attempting to recreate that sound, they came up with something totally different.
right.
You couldn't match that sound. And it's interesting because that sound that Muddy Waters came was inspired by experience. And
Mm-hmm.
I like to say that black music in America is forged by fire to take
Mm-hmm.
that soulful sound. That's a real,
Right.
when Aretha Franklin sings Ain't No Way, that's really
Mm-hmm.
crying out for help. That's
Exactly.
there's a real some real pain behind that. She's not influenced just by another singer or somebody else wrote it. It's
Yeah.
something behind it. Uh,
And
so
I feel the same way with you know with us as visual artists. You know, we may be turned on to a particular artist, and we may try to capture their style, but we ain't gonna never get their style. It's gonna be something that's you in there.
yeah,
In your attempt to get like a Rockwell or a Kerry James Marshall or something
hmm
like that, you are gonna come out. You
yeah,
know,
that's true.
you're not gonna get what you see. You're gonna get something else. So I thought that was a very interesting statement that Robert Plant said when he said that, because while he's talking about that in a musical terms, I'm looking at it totally in a visual aspect.
Yeah.
And I could totally relate to what he's saying,
hmm
totally, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a good synopsis of that he gave on trying to copy something, but then conjuring something else up.
hmm there's it's interesting, and I'm gonna stay with music just for another second. It's interesting how the visual arts, there was a time when a person could walk into an art gallery and see a piece of art on the wall and be so overwhelmed with it they would bring tears to their eyes. In the same way that, and I say this about Prince, I'm gonna use Prince as an example. He was on stage with probably five of the greatest guitarists of all times. Uh,
Saw that.
you saw that, and
Yeah.
they
And
performed
he
"My
threw that
Guitar
guitar
Gently."
at the end, he
He
threw the
threw the
guitar up
guitar
in
to
the
the
air.
crowd.
Yeah.
Yes. So in that he put on such a performance. I watched that after he died, and you couldn't help but get emotional. It was a powerful moment. But
Mm-hmm.
him on the stage with is six of the greatest guitarists of all time.
Bob Petty. I think
Patty, uh,
uh, I don't know if Jeff Beck was up there.
uh, what's his name from the '70s? Jeez, I can't remember his name, but anyway, that they got up there and they performed, and he made that guitar sing in such a way that it touched your soul. It was universal, so it didn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what culture you came from. When you heard that, it touched you. I would
Right.
like to see the visual arts get back to a place where we can experience it in that way. But I think that there's such an overstimulation and saturation of information using these smartphones and the computers and so much information that we don't get to enjoy a single moment because we're absorbing so many moments. So when
Right.
we walk into an art gallery, and I'm guilty of this before I learned to really examine art, it would be a fast paced walk with just a glance at each painting
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I'm so oversaturated with my normal day that I don't stop to look at the brushstrokes in these paintings. What's your take on that culture and the way we absorb art? Do you think we could get back to that place?
I don't know. I don't right now. I don't think so
It's tough,
because
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we're so bombarded with things because we want to see things and we want to glaze over things real quick unless we see something that spurs our interest. It's like we don't. When I get mail, I don't even open my mail half the time now. You know, um, a lot of stuff and a lot of my bills, I pay online and stuff. And when I get a notice on my phone, on my computer, so I'll look at it then,
hmm
but I won't stop to open this envelope and look at this, thing that was typed out with my name on it. Because electronically, I think we're just overdosing,
Yeah.
on things. So I think it will be, I'm sure it's possible, but I don't know if we can ever get that back again. Some things we're not going to get back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and people keep talking about, like with the pandemic going on, they keep talking about when things get back to normal, this is the new normal. Things ain't going back the way it used to be. We
Yeah.
could look at the field of teaching, you know, although some people are struggling, with this way of learning and teaching, but on the flip side of it, some people are thriving as well. you know. And when you teach this way, you don't have to invest in buildings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't have to invest in buildings, you don't have to pay for heat. You don't have to pay a lease. You don't have to do this and do that. So people are rethinking things now.
Yeah.
So this is the new normal.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The comedian George Carlin once said that he only wished that he could live a long life so that he could see how it all plays out in the end. Because it's going somewhere, it'd be really interesting. So, what is your primary medium? What is your primary medium? What do you work with the most?
What I work with the most, which has been like the last 10, 12 years, is watercolor.
Mm.
And the thing that intrigues me about watercolor is, it's spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and this is one of the things that I love, but I hate about it too, is that it's unforgiving.
Yeah.
And so you have to like have your second play ready by the time your brush hits the paper. Once the brush and the water and the paint hits the paper, things are going to go all over the place.
Mm.
But you have to have a plan. You have to have some kind of sense of a direction.
Mm.
And once you play within that direction, you could kind of figure things out. You when you want to make some solids that the surface has to be dry. If you want to blend, that your paper has to be wet.
Mm.
Those kind of things. And even though we know those things, we still make the stupid mistake of trying to achieve those things regardless of the rules.
Yeah.
So yeah, watercolor is my primary medium at this time.
That's interesting because I'm learning actually right here in arm's reach. I went and got
Mhm.
some tablets of watercolor paper because I really want to get into the practice of experimenting. Like you said, it's unforgiving. You
Yeah.
you make a mistake, you just gotta
Hmm.
start over. Uh,
Yeah.
so, do you find your process therapeutic at all? Is there a therapeutic element to your process?
Oh yeah. The therapeutic element comes from being alone. You
Mm.
know, in a quiet space, um, dealing with yourself, and you have plenty of time to think and contemplate. And sometimes that can be uh, a help, but sometimes it can be a hindrance too, because we can get in the habit of overthinking something to the point to where we destroy a piece.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it's very therapeutic because it's such um, a lonely thing. What we do, what you and I do, we're by ourselves. We
Yeah.
don't. It's not a team game.
No.
you know, we're by ourselves. Now we can get somebody to come in the studio to look at something and get a fresh eye. But when it's time to go back to work, you left to deal with you, you know, and your choices and your decisions and stuff like that. So, but I enjoy that loneliness because I'm pretty much of a loner kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'm not a crazy kind of guy. I mean, I like being around people and cracking jokes and having a beer or whatever. But for the most part, I'm I'm a loner by nature anyway.
It's
So it
something.
works out.
It's something about that quiet space, and it's interesting. My my mentor, friend, and mentor. Just this week, I was with him, and he introduced me to a friend of his that he paints with. Sometimes they've been friends for 50 years, and they were talking about how they do open air or plein air paintings.
Hmm.
And he said you would think people looking on would think we were mad at each other or didn't know each other because nobody says a word. He on his canvas and he's over here on his, and they're tuned in, and
Hmm.
and I think that one of the, like you said, the therapeutic elements that come with the visual arts is keying in on one thing and escaping all the noise of the world behind you. And for
Right.
me, one thing can just burst that bubble. You get inside
Mm-hmm.
that bubble, and somebody call your name from the other room. Pow, it's done. And
Right.
and sometimes and I don't know. Do you have a process to get yourself into that bubble to escape?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you mentioned earlier is that I turn on some music.
Mm,
Music is a very important part of my process as well. But a lot of times, especially when I'm like really into a particular piece, I'm not listening to the music. It's something in the background. It's just something that I have to feel. It's sort of like a child that has to have a blanket and suck his thumb or whatever. So it's like some kind of protection, where I have to have that space filled, you
mm.
know, to where I can paint. And I guess that's having a companion with you.
Yeah, yeah,
It's because what we do is pretty much an individual kind of lonely kind of thing. So I guess one of the things that fills that void is the music.
yeah. I like to say it's having a conversation. I have conversations with Pharaoh Sanders and Miles Davis, and
Oh yeah.
I'll turn that on, and I'll key into one instrument and all of that music. Yeah, it might be just the saxophone, and I'll just key into that, and I'll listen to that, and I'll get in the zone. And my process is I clean my palette because I do oil primarily. Get my razor and clean my palette off and get it all polished and cleaned up. Then I set my thing up, and I might listen to the music for another 10 minutes. And from the outside looking in, it's like this dude is wasting time. What is he doing? But it takes me a while to wind up. Almost how the girls used to do double dutch and they be
Hmm.
going back and forth. I have to get in that mode and then I jump in and then I just go to it. So
Yeah.
we're gonna get to these last questions because we're leading up towards the end. But I got a question. Tell me what you think when you hear these words. I'm gonna give you three words, and tell me what comes to mind when you hear them.
Okay.
Starving artist.
Okay. It could be.
What do you think? What comes to mind when you think of the word starving artist? Boom. What comes in your mind? What does that mean?
It's just a cliche
It's a
because
cliche.
everybody's not starving. Some of us are, but I never got behind that thing where I'm going to start out and I'm just going to live off of my art and that's it. I'm like, nah, I need a backup because I got to have a check coming in somewhere every 2 weeks.
That's right.
My wife wouldn't like me no more if I didn't have no money coming in anyway.
That's right.
And it also gives me the freedom to paint what I want to paint.
Mm,
Because if you put yourself in that box to where you can only depend on what you sell,
mm,
then you're a slave.
yeah.
You have to paint what sells and not paint what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have to be true to yourself and paint what you want. A lot of time, I have a series of works that I have done, and people love them. I did this blackface series where this is around the time when Kerry James Marshall came out. I was doing blackface series too,
Mm,
you know, and people loved them. All the ones I did, I sold,
mm,
but I stopped doing them because I wasn't in their space anymore,
yeah.
and I was able and wanted to do something else. And people were like, "You were good at those, and those sold a lot. How come you stopped doing them?"
Mm-hmm.
I said I wasn't feeling them anymore. I couldn't. And if I'm not feeling it, I can't paint it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You got some people who are machines that they paint to the crowd, they paint to the public, uh,
Yeah.
and a lot of times I advise young up and coming artists that want to talk about how they could go into business, and I tell them these things right here don't sell every day. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know any artist that sells a painting every day. There's some out there, I'm sure, but I don't know them.
It ain't me.
It ain't me. But you can sell. You can get to a point where you can sell prints every day, and then in
Mm-hmm.
addition to selling art, you better be teaching it, having paid webinar. You got to add on to. You can't just sell those things right there. It's
Yeah.
not enough. And people are always trying to talk you down. They see your price and they want to bring it down. It's like, hey, I'm trying to eat that money right there.
Right.
You not put, peanut butter on my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. What are you doing? So it can't just be that, and you have to add other things to your portfolio of
Right.
skills, and you
Yeah.
improve your skill set. And like back to the starving artist thing, because my definition of a starving artist is an artist that does not have the creativity when it comes to the business side and the artwork side to produce. So people say I'm in a slump. Well, when I get in a slump, and I learned this early on, when I get in a slump, I study art history until that
Mm-hmm.
slump ends. And when I return from it, I got more knowledge about my own craft. Even NBA
Right.
players watch films of the old
Right.
greats and learn, oh, he always goes left or he always goes
Mm-hmm.
right. And they learn these
Mm-hmm.
things and it helps you become better. And you'll be surprised how productive that can be, just learning the craft.
You
Yeah.
know, one of my favorite artists, one of the things that he said is that sometimes you got to put the brush down and you got to get down to the business of it, of doing your art.
Mm-hmm.
He said it ain't fun and it ain't pretty most of the time, but if you want to eat,
So
you got to do the business part of
oh,
it.
ain't fun. It is not fun.
So true.
But so the next word is freedom. What comes to mind when you hear the word freedom?
You kind of went out. I didn't hear you. You went in and out. I didn't hear you.
So the word freedom. What comes to mind when you hear the word freedom?
Oh, of course, when I hear the word freedom, it takes me to the place to where artistically, I could do what I want to do,
Mm.
and a lot of times, like I just mentioned, it's not always. You're not going to get from me the same thing all the time, just as you do.
Mm.
Sometimes I do some things that are abstract.
Mm.
Sometimes I do things that are representational. Sometimes I do things that are confrontational, you
Mm.
know. But it depends on, what I want to address at the time, you know. Um, so again, freedom is being at the point to where you can make the kind of work that you want to make, and not being a slave to someone who wants you to continue to paint that way. I've
Mm.
never understood the gatekeepers in art who says that, okay, Julian paints this, we're going to put him in that box, we're going to put him as an abstract expressionist, and that's all he does. That's not me. That's not me.
Absolutely.
I had conductors tell me, you can't keep changing. You have to do this and you have to do that. I didn't believe in it then. I don't believe in it now. And I've been out of graduate school 20 years now.
Mm. Yeah.
So I think that you should be true to yourself and paint um, what speaks to you, what's speaking to you at that time. And at different times, it's going to be different things.
That's
And if
right.
we just keep on living, things are going to affect us, whether it's society, whether you're influenced by one of your friends' works or whatever. I think you should be true to yourself and get that out of you.
Okay. I like that because I attempt to do that. Like we spoke about before, you notice there's different styles. Sometimes I feel,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like abstract expressionism is what I'm feeling at the moment, and I'll do
Mm-hmm.
that. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
cubism is what I'm feeling at the moment. I may be listening to again like Pharoah Sanders, and he has a song called "You Got to Have Freedom," and he blows that horn hard, and
Okay.
it's almost like a cacophonic sound. It's chaotic. And when I
Mm-hmm.
hear that type of jazz music, it makes me think of cubism. There's a
Yeah.
shape and a color associated with those sounds in my head. And that's how
Mm-hmm.
I paint. And
Mm-hmm.
and I agree, and that changes from day to day and from week to week. So we're gonna close with some rapid fire questions. And these questions just let people get to know you, just some fun little lightweight questions.
Okay.
What is the meaning of life? No, I'm just joking. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So here we go. What is your favorite color? On your palette, what's your favorite color?
Ochre.
Ochre, yellow
Yeah,
ochre,
yeah,
yellow ochre. Nice.
yeah.
I think I
Well,
see.
it's
I think I
ochre
see
and
some yellow ochre
umbers.
behind you. What's that?
Umbers. Ochres and umbers.
Ochres and umbers.
Yeah.
What's your favorite word?
Resonate.
Resonate. What's your least favorite word?
MF.
Now, our homeboy Bernie Mac would say different. So, and this is our the last question, the big one. If this was the last conversation that you had on this planet, what would you want me to say to the rest of the world about you? We're the last. This is the last talk you have, and I'm the only person that can tell everybody about. What would you want me to tell everybody about
um, that I painted what I wanted, and I painted as honestly as I could, and I was true to myself.
you? And with that said, man, I want to say thank you for coming today, and thank you for taking this interview with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. I very, very much appreciate it, Jakob.
Yeah, I think you have a compelling story, and I love your artwork. And thank everybody for listening. The artist talks again at Sankofa Studios. If you want to get in touch with the brother, you can look down in the bio, in my bio, and you'll see links to his social media where you can get in touch with him. If you want a commission, go ahead and shoot the brother a message. Let him do something for you. You see those paintings behind him? They're real nice. You can reach me at sankofastudios.com or info@yakubshabazz.com. Uh, we got a lot going on for 2021, so stay posted. We got some sales going on prints. We got some new works coming. And yeah, follow me everywhere at Sankofa_studios, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Reddit, you name it. I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere on the internet. So you can reach out to me. You better serve just emailing me or send me a DM on Instagram. But until next time, we will be going to our next episode. We'll be returning to a series that we call Remembering the Masters, and we're going to explore the life of one of our underappreciated heroes in art. But until next time, peace.